This is Terrific Time Travel with Thomas and John Leyton.
Hello and good evening, you're listening to Terrific Time Travel with me, Thomas Evans, that's the Spencer Davis group with Keep On Running on Terrific Time Travel, and this week I have been let out of the normal studio, and I'm not alone, and I'm sat next to a true 60s legend, who you will know from starring in the 1963 film The Great Escape with Steve McQueen and Richard Attenborough. You may also know him from working with Frank Sinatra, and he has had 7 top 40 hits, with 2 in the top 10 and 1 right at the top of the charts, and here are just a few of those hits.
Said son, this is she. I love you 'cause you're just a cupboard love.
Welcome to Dean Radio, it's singer and actor John Leyton. Hello and welcome to Terrific Time Travel. How are you?
I'm all right here. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's great to have you. You're one of my, well, you are the first big guest I've had on Terrific Time Travel. So
oh, really?
Very exciting, yes.
Oh, I'm very honoured.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, we've got lots to ask, a lot to talk about, and you've chosen a selection of the songs tonight, 6 of them, and then I've chosen the other 3. And also, before we get going, normally at the top of my show, I have a big jingle with a smash of hits, but this week we've created one just for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Tell you, chum, it's time to come blow your horn.
I was defeated, you are alone.
This is Dean Radio. Johnny, remember me.
Everybody, let's rock. Everybody in old cell block.
This is Terrific Time Travel with Thomas and John Leyton.
You are featured in the Dean Radio Terrific Time Travel opening jingle. Well, to get us started, we have got your first song choice, Elvis Presley and Heartbreak Hotel. Why have you chosen this one as your first song for us to play this evening?
Yeah, Heartbreak Hotel was, I think it was round about about 1957, I think. But Heartbreak Hotel was Elvis Presley's. It was a smash hit. It was his first song on RCA Victor label, and it went to number 1 in the US charts, and it was a huge hit. And for me, it was the start of rock and roll, because I remember walking. At the age of 18, I had to go in the army and do national service, as all 18-year-old boys did in those days. And I'd just come out of the army, so it must have been 1956 actually that Heartbreak Hotel was released. And I remember walking down the road where we lived, and there was a record shop, and I walked past the record shop, and this song was blaring out from the record shop, and I'd never heard anything like it before. I thought, what is it? Since my baby left me. And I thought, what the hell is that? So I went into the record shop, and in those days, record shops had, by the way, the records, or the discs, as they're now probably called, they were 78s, and then they became 45s, and then they became CDs. And in the record shop, they had listening booths all along the shops. And you would go up to the counter and you say, I'd like to listen to, well, in this case, Elvis Presley singing Heartbreak Hotel. And then you take it into the booth and you close the door and you listen to it. And then if you liked it, you buy it. It was quite funny because the booths were soundproof and they were all along the wall. And you could see all these people dancing to, or moving around to the music. And of course you couldn't hear anything, so you thought, what are these funny people
What are they
doing?
listening to?
But that's when I first heard Heartbreak Hotel, and in my opinion, it was the start of the introduction to rock and roll, and it introduced rock and roll to the world, and Elvis Presley as well.
we're going to start with The Great Escape. When you look back now, what stands out the most about being part of such an iconic film?
Well, we had no idea when we made the Great Escape was made in Bavaria in Germany. The whole film was shot there, and we had no idea at the time that it was going to be anywhere near as iconic as it has become. I mean, goodness me, even the theme music from the film, I think, was played for England football team at one stage, wasn't it? But it was. I was in the very first shot, on the very last shot, and it took 6 months to make.
6 months.
And we
Well,
made
it'd
it.
taken longer than
It was
6
in
months.
1962. It was shot,
Yeah.
and it was released in 1963. And it was a big cast, but of course, in 1962, Steve McQueen really wasn't that well known. The best known actor in it was, in fact, James Garner, who played the Scrounger. And Jim Garner, as he was called, Jim, he had just finished a huge television series, very popular, called Maverick, and it was a Western series, and so it was he was the best known. Of course, Richard Attenborough was very well known, but the rest of us weren't that well known. It was interesting. The man who directed The Great Escape was John Sturges, and John Sturges had previously directed, just before he directed The Great Escape, he directed The Magnificent Seven. And in The Magnificent Seven, there was Steve McQueen, and there was James Coburn and Charles Bronson. So they sort of came across, if you like, from The Magnificent Seven, and they were all in The Great Escape. And I went through The Great Escape with Charles Bronson. I played Willie the Tunnel King.
Yes.
And which wasn't very pleasant because the tunnel collapsed on me at one stage.
So were you actually underground when you were filming the tunnels?
The tunnel. It was quite funny actually. They had the tunnel built along one side of the this very, very big studio, and so they could take the sides off it and shoot sideways, or put the side back on and shoot down it. And the tunnel collapsed on me, but there was a great big sack of earth above me, and John Sturges, the director, said, "Don't worry, John." He said, "We'll get you out all right." But he said, "What we've done is that we've put quite a bit of cork in with the earth." He said, "The theory is that if we have a bit of trouble getting you out, you should be able to breathe."
Yeah.
And I said to him, "I don't like the word theory, and I don't like the word should." But
So
anyway,
it hadn't been tested.
if you remember the film, the tunnel collapsed on me, and Charlie Bronson pulled me out, so everything was fine. But it was a bit scary for a few seconds.
Yes, I can imagine. Did you have any sense at the time when you were filming it that it would become such a big film, still watched today and aired every Christmas?
No, not at all. To us and to everybody got on very well, which was probably actually came across on screen. But no, I don't think any of us had any idea that it was going to be quite as iconic as it has become. And Steve McQueen, it really did make Steve McQueen, but mainly it was the bike stunt at the end, really, careering around the Bavarian countryside on a motorbike.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, Steve McQueen was one of the few characters that wasn't true to the film. He was sort of put in as just to give the film a bit of Hollywood.
Yeah. So
but
the rest of the characters are based on true people.
Yeah. I mean, most of the characters were playing true characters. I can't remember the man I was playing, but I know I was playing a character who was involved in digging the tunnel. So, but it was a very happy film to make. As I say, it was made in '62. Started filming round about, I think it was about April, and went through to sort of the autumn. So it was very nice being in Bavaria.
Yeah. You mentioned the tunnel falling in on you. When I watched it, the scene when you first tried to escape in the trucks with the fir trees in,
Yeah.
were you inside the truck when they were stabbing the
Yes, I
forks
was.
in? You were in there. I thought they might have filmed it separately.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy about that either, because the German, the guy playing the German officer, he had his great big pitchfork. Do you
Yes.
remember?
Yeah.
And I jumped into the truck and hid under the firs, the branches and things, and he comes along with the pitchfork, and he was mighty close to my head when he was putting the pitchfork in.
Because
And when I got out and the director said cut, I actually said to him, "You were a bit too close with that pitchfork."
I just imagined you'd have done it separately, but you did
No,
it together.
no, it was all done in one shot actually.
Wow.
No,
Wow.
yeah.
And then before we take some music, have you watched Chicken Run?
Oh no, yes, I have briefly.
You
yeah.
have. Have you seen the whole film?
No.
No, I've not either.
No.
But did you think it was a good adaptation of The Great Escape?
Not really. No.
No.
I can't say. No, I was rather surprised. I only watched it briefly, actually, and I thought, so what the hell is this?
That's the Beatles, and I Want to Hold Your Hand on Dean Radio, chosen by John Leyton, who is with me. The Beatles. Why the Beatles?
Yeah, well, the Beatles. I had my first big hit, was in 1961. And then the Beatles really came into being, I think it was around about 63, really. The first song the Beatles recorded was, I hope I got this right, was a song called Love Me Do.
Yes, I think, yes.
And then the next song was Please Please Me. And then Brian Epstein, their manager, said, I want you to write, or said to John Lennon and Paul McCartney, I want you to write a song for the US charts, for the US, because they hadn't really made it in America. And so John and Paul wrote I Want to Hold Your Hand, and it was their first big chart entry in the US, and in fact it was a massive hit. It went to number one, and it launched the Beatles worldwide, and they never looked back after that.
No.
And the interesting thing is that in those days, the popular music was really run by the US. I mean, all the big singers and all the singers most of the singers that had hits in the UK were American. There was Frank Sinatra. Obviously, he was always around, but it was very rare that any English or British artist could have a hit in the States, and then the Beatles happened, and it was all one way.
Yeah.
And of course, with the Beatles, when they first came out, they weren't referred to as a band. They were all referred to as groups.
Yes.
And but they'd opened the floodgates for all these other groups, and along came the Rolling Stones and Small Faces, and the whole pattern and the whole face of popular music changed from solo singers to bands. So the reason I chose that, it was because it was their very first big number one hit in the States, and it changed the face of popular music.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind because I was an actor, so I just went.
Thank you. I'm joined by John Leyton. He is with me. He's chosen a lot of the songs tonight. Bye Bye Love is one of them. The Everly Brothers. Why?
The Everly Brothers, well, they were around in the early 60s, and they were a UK group. Well, there were just two of them, the two brothers, Phil and I can't remember the other one. You probably remember the name.
No, I can't.
There used to be a joke going around. Can I tell a joke?
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody, I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but somebody was on stage and they said, I used to live next door to the Everlys. And the audience said, oh, really? Yes, he said. One smoked heavily and the other drank heavily. Oh, sorry, but it became a sort of joke that went round and actually sort of went all over and was on broadcast, and it became a very famous joke about the Everleys. But anyway, the reason I chose the Everleys is that their harmonies were their harmonies merged between country, rock and roll, and folk music, and it was very unusual. And they had excellent. Their harmonies were excellent. And in fact, there was another band in Los Angeles called the Beach Boys, who also had incredible harmonies. And but the one I chose for the Everly Brothers was "Bye Bye Love," which was a huge hit. And in fact, when I was out on stage performing, and I used to include "Bye Bye Love" in my set on stage. So that's really why it's a great song, and it's the harmonies are great, and as I say, it's a combination of country and rock and roll and folk, which makes it quite unusual.
Yeah, not common. Yeah. Well, we've got more questions now about your career and music now. What was it that inspired you to get into performing?
What I wanted to be is an actor, but I got delayed because I had to go do national service, and so I couldn't. You started your national service at the age of 18. You did 2 years, and then after, so I was 20 until I sort of start getting into it. When I was in the army. I actually quite enjoyed it. But you had to do it because you were conscripted. But I remember when I finished my basic training in the army in Aldershot, in Hampshire. Basic training lasted 6 months, and at the end of 6 months, I was asked where I would like to be posted. And I thought, well, I've got another 18 months to go. I'd quite like to see the world. And so I said, I'd like to be posted to the Far East. And the army sent me to Berkeley Square in London.
Oh. Not as exotic as you wanted.
I wish I said I'd like to be posted to London. They might have sent me to the Far East. Anyway, I was in the Directorate of Manpower Planning, which sounds very smart. Anyway, that's beside the point. I'm drifting away. What was your question?
Hang on. What was it that inspired you to get into performing?
Right. Well, when I came out of the army, I remember sitting on a bench in Berkeley Square at the age of 20, thinking I'd really like to sort of see what I can do about joining a drama school, which I eventually did. And I guess it was very difficult in those days, and I'm sure it's very difficult still, but you go to drama school, and then I finished at drama school. I did 2 years in drama school, and then I went, in those days they had repertory theatres all over the country, and I applied and got into a repertory theatre in York called the Theatre Royal York. And I stayed there for about, I must have been about 9 months, and then I came back to London to look for an agent. Of course, that was very difficult. I used to I'd go to an agent and I'd give them a photograph, and they'd say, right, well, what have you done? And I'd say, well, I haven't done anything, that's why I want an agent. And said, well, we can't take you on until we see you in something. But I said, well, I can't get for you to see me in something unless I have an agent to get me into something.
So which came first, the chicken or the egg?
It was really catch-22. But eventually I actually did find somebody, and who had actually just come to London from Australia. And actually he became very famous. His name was Robert Stigwood. and Robert Stigwood went on to manage the Bee Gees and various other bands, and he also produced 1 or 2 Hollywood films. So that's really how I got into acting.
Yeah.
And then I got a television series called it was called Biggles. I don't know if
Yes,
do you remember Biggles?
Well, I don't remember it.
Oh, no,
but I've watched a clip, and I've seen the clip of you performing on there.
There were a whole mass of Biggles books, and it was about Captain Bigglesworth of the Air Police. And Granada Television decided to do a series on Biggles, and I went up and tested. There were 3 characters. There was Biggles, and there was Lord Bertie. He was the posh one, and I went up for the scruffy one, Ginger. And luckily, Ginger in those days it was black and white television,
Yes.
so I didn't have to have red hair, which I don't. And so anyway, I got the role of Ginger in this Biggles television series for Granada Television. And it was while I was doing that series, I started getting quite a lot of fan letters from teenage girls. And Robert Stigwood said to me one day, he said, "Can you sing?" Well, you never ask an actor if he can do anything, because there might be a nice role at the end of it. So you always say yes. Can you fly an aeroplane? Oh, yes. And anyway, because of all these fan letters, he thought it would be a good idea if we tried sort of singing. So we tried singing, and well, the rest speaks for itself, really.
What was the first song that you recorded?
Well, the very first song, it was very unfortunate, because the very first song I recorded was a song called "Tell Laura I Love Her." And I recorded it on the Top Rank label, and it was just about to be released, and Top Rank, unfortunately, went bust.
Oh.
And EMI bailed them out and took them over. And EMI already had their version of "Tell Laura I Love Her." So they released "Tell Laura I Love Her," and they threw my version in the bin.
Oh no.
And their version went to number 1.
Oh,
So I missed out on a possible number 1.
2 number 1s.
Yeah.
Because then, so Johnny Remember Me, 1961.
Well, then I think EMI started to feel a bit sorry for me, and they said, we'd like to take me on as a contract singer, and which was all very new, because I was an actor and I wasn't really sort of used to all this singing, although I loved music.
Yeah.
And I'd already heard Elvis Presley and in the Heartbreak Hotel. I loved it all. So it was actually a privilege and a pleasure to be all part of it. Robert Stigwood introduced me to the first independent record producer called Joe Meek.
Yeah.
And Joe Meek has become now quite a sort of famous name.
Yeah.
And in those days, all the artists sang for the major record companies like EMI, Decca, and Pi.
Yes.
PYE, that was not PIE. And but I recorded for Joe Meek, who became the first independent record producer, and a lyricist called Jeffrey Goddard was told to go home at the weekend. He was told to go home on the Friday, and I was doing Biggles at the time.
Yeah.
I was told to go home on the Friday and write a song for me, and so he told me later. He went home and he couldn't. He had terrible trouble writing anything. It was blank, and then eventually he said he got up on Sunday morning and he wrote "Johnny Remember Me" in about 20 minutes, and so he brought it in on the following week, and we recorded it. And originally, when the BBC heard it, the original lyrics of "Johnny Remember Me" were, when the mists are rising and the rain is falling and the wind is blowing cold across the moor, I hear the voice of my darling who died a year ago. And the BBC didn't like that at all.
No.
So we had to go back in the studio and we changed it to The Girl I Loved and Lost a Year Ago. And so they were quite happy with that, And then as an actor, I got a role in a television series called Harper's West One, which was about a store in London called Harper's in the postal district of West One. And would you believe it? The role I was playing was the role of a rock star called Johnny Sincere. And Sincere was spelled S-T-C-Y-R. It's quite a cool name,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Sincere. And anyway, as Johnny Sincere, I sung the song on this show, Johnny Remember Me, because it all fitted in.
Yes.
Johnny Sincere, Johnny Remember Me. And to sing a song on network television in those days was a huge plug. And the following day, I was living with my parents at the time, and the following day my father said, I'll go down to the local record shop and buy 2 or 3 records to get it on its way. And he went down about 10 o'clock in the morning. He was back 10 minutes later. He said, you're not going to believe this. He said, they've sold out. And that was at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So I thought, I think we've got something here.
Well, shall we play it now here on Dean Radio? This is Johnny Remember Me by John Leyton.
So that's the story of Johnny Remember Me, really, yeah. And so there we were. Hey presto, I was a pop singer.
What's it like now when you hear that song played?
Well, it's a bit spooky, really, because it was such a long time ago. And people, I think it's actually held up quite well, because Joe Meek was a very aggressive producer. And when Johnny Remember Me first came out, it didn't get a very good review. And I remember in one of the trade papers, music papers, one reviewer said, it sounds as if John Leyton is singing at the bottom of an empty well.
Oh.
Because Joe liked a bit of reverb and a
Yes.
bit of echo, and he was known for that. So it wasn't. And I was the guest on a show at the time called Jukebox Jury, where 4 people sat and they played the latest releases and they reviewed it and gave it either a hit or a miss. And they played Johnny Remember Me and it got a miss.
But it still made it to number 1 though.
Yeah, well, yeah, it did. Yeah, yes.
So, yeah.
David Jacobs was the compare for because when they gave it a miss, David Jacobs said, well, I think you're wrong. He said, I think it's going to be a massive hit. And of course it was. So
But he proved everyone wrong.
Waterloo, which you've just played, I think I'm right in saying was their first number 1, or certainly their first big hit.
Yes, a big hit.
Big hit. And it really sort of launched them, because they were another sort of breath of fresh air, really, in the pop world, because they were beautiful songs. That it was very difficult to pick a song for with ABBA, but they were all lovely songs. But I chose this one because I remember it won the Eurovision Song Contest. Actually, I think it was about 1974 now, wasn't it? Yeah. And it won that contest, and it plays a particular nice in my head. I remember it. It was quite pleasant because I had a bet on it. I had a bet with William Hill that it would. Can't remember how much I put on it, but I think it will win the Eurovision Song Contest, and it did. So I got a nice bit of money out of it.
You got something out of it. Well, we'll take a quick break now, and then when we come back, actually quickly before we take a break, did you ever think about doing Eurovision? Were you ever asked for Eurovision?
No, I was approached.
You were approached?
I was approached, and I thought, no, I stepped back.
So when were you approached to do that?
Oh, it must have been round about mid-60s. I think Cliff Richard did one, didn't he?
Yes, Cliff Richard
Yeah.
did.
I don't
And he
know
won it. Did he win it with congratulations? No, he came
Yeah,
second with
I think it
congratulations.
was, yes. But no, I was also quite involved with films as an actor as well,
Yeah.
and I thought I didn't really want to do that. No.
But you were approached. Wow. It's Thomas Evans with you here on Dean Radio. It's Saturday night or your Monday repeat. It's coming up to 8 o'clock now, and I'm joined by John Leyton, who is with me, and he's chosen a selection of the songs tonight, and Come Blow Your Horn by Frank Sinatra is one of them. You worked with Frank Sinatra, and so why have you chosen this one in particular?
When you choose a song by Frank Sinatra, there is a whole load. Where do you start?
Yes.
A bit like
Hundreds.
Elvis as
Yes.
well. But I chose this one, which is probably a slightly lesser known of his hits. And the reason I chose it is that in 1963, in the end of 62, I think it was. Well, it's beside the point. I toured Australia and New Zealand with Adam Faith, and I came back via Los Angeles and New York.
Yeah.
And I came back that way because when I got to Los Angeles, they wanted me to start promoting. I was asked to start promoting The Great Escape, and because The Great Escape was then, yes, it was early 63, and The Great Escape was released in 63, because we
Yes.
made it in 62, released in 63. And I was invited while I was there, I was invited to a recording studio, and I was invited up to the control room, and would you believe it, Nelson Riddle, the famous conductor and arranger, was in the studio with this huge orchestra, and I was told that Frank Sinatra was about to appear to record a song, and I was in the control room. And it just happened to coincide with Sinatra singing a song, or recording a song. But it was quite extraordinary because Sinatra came into the studio, and he always wore it was always photographed, or he wore a trilby hat.
Yes.
And he walked into the studio, and he walked up to the rostrum where the music stand was, and he took his hat off and put it on the music stand, and he nodded at Nelson Riddle, and Nelson Riddle nodded back, and Nelson Riddle put his hand up to the control room, and he sung "Come Blow Your Horn." "Come Blow Your Horn" was actually the song from a film called "Come Blow Your Horn." And he sang it, and he finished singing it, and he took his hat off the stand and put it on his head. The Nelson Riddle finished playing it. He waved at the orchestra, he waved at the control room, and walked out. And the whole orchestra stood up and applauded.
And that was it.
And he was in and out of the studio for the length of the song.
So it was one take wonder.
Say 5 minutes.
So he was,
You know, these days they take 3 hours, 4 hours.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say days.
Yeah. So that's why, and little did I know that a year later I would be working with Frank Sinatra.
What was the film you worked with him in?
Von Ryan's Express.
Yeah.
And if you can call it working, but there was a very famous, I digress a bit here, there was a very famous actor, called Hollywood actor, a tough guy called Robert Mitchum. And Robert Mitchum was quite a wit, and quite witty, and he wrote his biography. He wrote a biography, called it Sure Beats Working, which was quite a good title. But Robert Mitchum, or Bob as he was known as, he got into a lot of trouble because he got caught in possession of marijuana.
Oh dear.
And in those days it was pretty serious, drug, serious. And he got put in prison. He got sent to prison for, I think it was about 8 weeks. And when he came out of prison, all the press was standing outside prison. And one of them shouted out, "How did you like prison, Mr. Mitchum?" And he said, "It was fine." He said, "They were all very nice. It was fine." He said, "It was like Palm Springs without the riffraff."
I don't know.
I don't know why I said that. I'm sorry.
Where to go from now?
But he did say that. It's true. Right, back to normal.
I've forgotten what we were saying before.
About the film Von Ryan's Express.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that. Von Ryan Express, what was your role in that with Sinatra?
Well, I really wasn't sure about doing Von Ryan's Express. When I went to see, I was under a sort of contract to 20th Century Fox because I had done another film after the Great Escape called Guns at Batazi, which was a film I did with Richard Attenborough. And in fact, I was third billed of that. Was starring Richard Attenborough, Dame Flora Robson, and me. And then I was offered Von Ryan's Express, and I went up to meet the producers, and I looked at the role and I thought, I don't think I really want to play this role because, first of all, it's another war film, and I'd like to sort of digress a bit, if I may, and it's not that great a role really. So I said I think I'd sooner pass and wait for something a little better to come along.
Yeah.
And I walked away, and everything was fine, and I walked out. I was just about to walk out of the door, and I said, "Oh, by the way, who's playing Von Ryan?" And they said, "Frank Sinatra." I said,
That
"What?
changed your mind.
Frank Sinatra? Wow." And he was the biggest star in the world then.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the biggest.
The biggest.
So I said, "Right, I'll do it."
On the spot, changed your mind entirely.
So that's how I got in. In fact, in that, I mean, it was very nice. He was a very nice man. He was. I got on very well with him, and lots of stories about Frank Sinatra. We could go on all day about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was Von Ryan's Express, which got me to Hollywood. So there we are. Well, got me to Hollywood again. I've been once before when I actually saw him sing "Come Blow Your Horn."
Yeah.
So anyway, there we are.
And you've mentioned there several people who you've got to work with, and there are so many. Are there any others who stand out that you've got to work alongside with?
Not really. I mean, if you think about the cast of The Great Escape, and then of course Frank Sinatra, I did a television series in Los Angeles for MGM, and but there were several names, but I got to meet a lot of people, very famous names. I mean, when we were doing Von Ryan's Express, all sorts of people came into the stage where we were shooting it in 20th Century Fox. The location work was all shot in Rome, round Rome. And then we went to Hollywood to do the interiors, but all sorts of people came into the studio there. I mean, there were so many of them. Tony Curtis. I don't know if this means anything to you or your listeners. They were all terribly famous
The
at the
listeners
time.
might know them.
It's a bit like saying Brad Pitt came in, but Tony Curtis, Yul Brynner, who was in The Magnificent Seven. Gene Simmons, she came in. Anyway, I could. Elizabeth Taylor, she came onto the set. But there we are. Yes,
So you've met a lot of people.
I met a lot of people. Yes.
Yeah. If there's one film that you could have worked on or a character you could have played, what character or film would that have been? Well,
I nearly got the lead role in a film called The Blue Max. I don't know if that means anything
I don't
to you.
recognise
The
the
Blue
film.
Max was about a World War I fighter pilot, the Red Baron. Does that mean anything to you?
No.
Unfortunately, I was actually up for that, and for the lead in that. And I would love to have played it. But unfortunately, the money decided that perhaps I wasn't a big enough name to carry the film. And so it went to an actor called George Peppard, who I could see the expression on your face. You haven't heard of him either.
Perhaps I've heard of you. You're a bigger name than him then, in my mind.
But these were all very big names. Yeah. So, I mean, that's certainly one film. I'm sure a lot of your listeners, I would have thought, would have seen The Blue Max because it was quite popular and it was a good film and a lot of tension, a lot of action.
So they didn't give you any role in that, or did you have a smaller role than the main character?
No, that was it. I didn't. I was just up for the lead role, and I would have loved to have played it. But anyway, I finished up doing a television series out there instead. So.
Did you ever want to do like James Bond?
No.
What's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given in your career?
Advice?
Yeah.
Probably get a proper job.
What's one like big change you've seen in the entertainment industry since when you started to now?
Well, certainly music. I mean, music has just got to change. I mean, hugely. I mean, it changed hugely once the Beatles came along.
Yeah.
And then it's progressed from there. I think the film industry possibly now, we're 2026 we are now, goodness. I think the film industry is struggling a bit because there are so many other sort of areas where, I mean, the television has really got so many different channels now, and you've got Netflix and you've got all sorts of things that. I mean, the film industry is very much the same. I mean, I remember in it must have been the 60s that the trio of films, they were called the dollar films, with Clint Eastwood. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the dollar films, but they certainly started created a new era in the film industry. But I think the film industry, the films you see today are sort of, roughly the same. You've got Tom Cruise sort of careering around, doing all these amazing stunts, and I don't think the film industry has really changed that much. It's music that is...
Yeah, music's had the biggest change.
Totally different, yeah.
Well, we'll play another one of your songs, Son, This Is She. When was that released in?
That was released in 1963, I think.
It's
yes.
the same year as The Great Escape.
Yeah, when The Great Escape came out. Yes, it was sort of not possible. It's not one of my favourite songs that I recorded. It's all right. I mean, it was written again by Jeff Goddard, who wrote Johnny Remember Me, and but I think that my choice of songs, I basically sang what I was told to sing, as I think most young singers were then. And I personally wouldn't have chosen Son, This Is She.
Well, is there another one we could play for you?
No, just play it, it's fine. I mean, that's fine. I've recorded so many songs of it, I've recorded a lot of Elvis Presley songs as well, of course. But no, Son, This Is She, fine. Give it a whirl.
We've got very little time left. So we've got some quick fire questions. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Film set or recording studio?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. Film set.
Vinyl or streaming?
Streaming.
Live audience or camera?
I just said vinyl.
I was surprised. Live audience or camera?
Oh, another tricky one. Oh, that's so. Oh, live audience, I think. Yeah.
One word to describe The Great Escape.
Iconic, I guess.
One word to describe the 1960s.
The swinging 60s.
Best way to have eggs.
Right. Sunny side up.
A song you'd wished recorded.
Oh, gosh, that's a nasty one. Song I wish I'd recorded. Well, I guess Heartbreak Hotel, because it went to #1 in the States.
Best decade for music?
Well, I suppose I would have to say 60s, yes. Yeah, I'd have to say 60s. So,
Breakfast, lunch or dinner?
dinner.
What's the last film you've watched?
Well, actually, you won't believe this. I think it was The Great Escape. Because I watched it on television, and I don't normally watch it. When it's on television so much, I don't normally watch it. But I hadn't watched it for so long that when it was last on, I think around about Christmas time, it's usually on at Christmas, I actually sat and my wife and I both sat and watched it. And it was quite frightening, really, because, God, is that really me?
And then finally, sum up your career in 3 words.
I could probably do it better with 3 sentences.
Okay, do 3 sentences then.
Get me John Leyton. Get me somebody that looks like John Leyton. And who's John Leyton? That's the career of an actor.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining me this week. I've got one more song to play, Jailhouse Rock by Elvis Presley. We're going to end how we started. Elvis Presley again,
right?
Big name.
Well, this Jailhouse Rock, I think Heartbreak Hotel was released in 1956, was it? I think it was.
Late 50s.
Anyway, Jailhouse Rock was a bit like Come Blow Your Horn was the title of the film, and the big number in Jailhouse Rock was the song Jailhouse Rock. And there's a bit of a sad story to this, actually. I'm actually told that in the big production number in the film, Elvis sang Jailhouse Rock, and he did a lot of the choreography himself, I'm told. And you can probably tell, actually, because it's not very coordinated. It's quite sort of fragmented, but the choreography is very good. But the sad thing about this film, it was a huge film, and it was a huge big hit for him. But the leading actress in the film was with Elvis was a girl called Judy Tyler, and Judy Tyler, very sadly, when the film finished, she was in a road accident and she lost her life. And I know that Elvis Presley was absolutely devastated, and he apparently, and I'm sure this is true, because of the tragic accident to Judy Tyler, his co-star, he never watched the film and never discussed it because he was so devastated. And it's a sad story, but that's not why I chose it. I chose it because it launched rock and roll again. It was a real rock and roll number. And it launched, well, he was already launched with Heartbreak Hotel, but it was, then he followed it up with Jailhouse Rock, and Jailhouse Rock is a real rock.
It is.
It's a rock number.
And it's a great song to end tonight's show.
Yeah.
So, yes.
You know that one, do you?
Oh, yes, I know that one.
Right.
This is Jailhouse Rock, chosen by John Leyton. Thank you very much for joining me this week. I've absolutely loved it. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
And you. Thank you.
And I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you very much.
Your whole life is ahead of you.
Yeah.
I wish mine were.
Thank you very much.